your university wasn't really empowering like a free spirit and mind of like think on yourself and be more creative, and they were like preparing the not blue collar workers but workers, like lawyer, be a business owner, not business owner but mainly work for someone else, for corporations. So what do you think about in general kind of educational system? Because part of me thinks if you would just have, just like they were talking about Goodwill Hunter, remember there's a piece when they said all you need is have a library card and you can get all those books and read if you're interested and you can learn them, instead of, especially America, go and pay all that money. Like, how much did your university cost you?
My university was about $25,000.
$25,000 altogether.
Altogether.
So that was pretty cheap. That's very cheap in States, isn't it? So it's very lucky. But you know how it is in the rest of the States. There's so many, they get out of university with $60,000, $70,000 debt. So what I'm trying to probably ask you, what would be the alternative? Instead of having this is the way it is now, educational system, what do you think would be a good alternative?
Yeah, it's a great question. So I feel like the value of specifically the university system right now is much more that it has that whole ecosystem and that whole community around it. And when we look at urban design, right, one of the areas I studied in university when I went over to Copenhagen to study abroad in Denmark is, this idea of mixed use design. And in universities, they really embody that, right? They have the dining right next to the housing, right next to the school buildings, right next to where people are working, right next to literally every single area of life. And it's all connected through quads, through grass, through these beautiful areas. And what that enables is, at least at the university I ended up attending, is a really vibrant culture, and a really vibrant culture of innovation and empowerment in these different ways. And so that's the amazing part. The unfortunate part is that what we actually end up studying is not the most useful, right? And it ends up being, all of these subjects that we go into, studying, history and mathematics and concepts that are definitely useful, definitely valued, however, not super central to what are actually the big problems in the world and how can we each individually really do something about it. And it was pretty amazing actually just how little, right? Because I was sort of in the business school, but I wasn't like a full business student. So especially in the College of Arts and Sciences, they don't really do the preparation for work in general, right? They don't really train you to do that sort of thing. And you almost need to do other programs to make that happen. But even more than that, it just really doesn't teach the fundamentals of business and of small business, which I think is so important. Like even for me going in and studying entrepreneurship, right, at UNC, which is one of the top 20 entrepreneurship schools in the country, it's like they didn't even teach us what sales was. It was literally like almost a year into doing business that I actually realized I actually need to learn how to have these conversations to be able to enroll people. They barely talked about what marketing was, right? It was like these most important, most fundamental parts of business they don't go into, and they really just went into, tech entrepreneurship, which is almost like getting a job from an investor, which I thought was quite funny. And same with the psychology world, right? It's like they teach the textbook psychology, but being in the transformational world, the way that I am, it's like, that's actually such a simple way of looking at psychology, right? It's just a conversation. It's the conversation from a very limited mindset, and the different tools, the different techniques, whether it's embodiment techniques, whether it's different, practices that people can enter into, or just also different ways of having conversations and holding that space for that logical and that emotional and that action-oriented journey for people. It's literally just 100 times more effective, like not even joking, than it was at the college I went to, which is actually ranked as the #1 clinical psychology school. And so it's really just amazing. The world is just full of, it's basically just networks of people and networks of people. And the reality is that a lot of these codes, a lot of these really deep codes around business and around life and the most important things in the world have traditionally been passed down through families, right? Through families who are giving their empires to their heirs. And that's really where that information is. And now it's starting to be, this is why I do coaching and why I love the coaching world, because we can transmit those very, very deep codes, but nobody even talks about anything like that in the university or in the school system. And that's why, in Bali, especially in the communities I'm in, there's this idea of people waking up, which is when we wake up, we start to realize, number one, just how much we can do with our lives, but also just the power that we have to be able to have so much more access to creativity, have so much more access to the inner genius that all of us have that so few of us actually end up unlocking. And we can actually wake up to just how life can literally be anything we want it to be.
Well,
right?
George, I like the way we just kind of went through. So I was like, I want to say something. I want to go a little bit back to the business, and I totally agree what you were talking about. That we talk so much about theoretical concepts instead of actually how do we do sales, how do we do marketing, like for small businesses, or how do we start small businesses. And because I started business as well, and then the idea was that most of the things we're talking about, they were so theoretical, and I was like, it was even difficult to understand what the hell are we studying about. And then I got my 4 years degree, and I'm like, what did I do there? And I was very lucky in some sense. So my parents couldn't afford to support me, so I started working from the year one. And then because I was straight away in sales, straight away in marketing, and then was like, oh, that's why we study this. Then you have the practical application. But there's some students who go from year one to year 7, and they got their master's degree, and they never had a practical application. Well, MBA is different. You have to have practical practice, and you have to work and stuff. But people get out of the university, it was like, oh, this how do you do marketing? How do you do sales? And then, I agree to what you said. But then also about psychology. So could it be the factor of that they really did not have experience that this is how you can apply, and that was the reason why they wouldn't teach you these kind of different ways? Because what you do in Bali now, and it's such a small community and small number of people who actually do and apply psychology and this knowledge the way you do it. Would you say that those professors who used to teach you whatever, they just did not know that that's a possibility to do it?
It's a really good question. It's actually very intriguing to me why psychology as a field and as a science is so behind, which is the way I really see it. Like, I look at the community of people that I'm in, and I look at psychology, I'm like, wow, like psychology is literally like 100 years behind a lot of this. And I feel like a lot of it might be just this strict separation from religion, actually.